I'm feeling that's where social media is going to go eventually. Facebook, Instagram, TikTok.
Sure.
When they recognize that the caption copy is written by AI, if they can recognize it, they're going to knock down the reach because they don't see it as genuine.
Have you ever felt?
Are you listening? Damn. Yeah.
Love how South Park just is uncancelable. They can do whatever they want.
Yeah.
Keep it going.
They ruined my name. 110%.
Damn it, cow.
Damn cow.
Damn cow.
Yeah, like, I don't think Courtney actually says my real name. It's
Does he?
Cow. I'm like, fuck.
Oh, that's Courtney. He finds like a weird nickname and like or weird way to say somebody's name all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Anytime he came into Steamworks to visit Colin when he was working, because I don't think Courtney ever worked there.
No.
He would hang out, but Colin was working there.
Yeah.
Yeah. He would come hang out and he would just be fucking with everybody.
Courtney. He just had a baby.
Did he really?
Yes, he did.
I can't imagine him having a kid.
I know, right? Love you, Courtney.
We love you.
Yeah, actually born on my son's birthday. So same
awesome.
birthday. Yeah, it was kind of, it was one of those things I was like, oh man, because it gets weird like when birthdays are shared, like especially with younger kids, but they're aged enough. And so I was like, I don't know. I'll tell Jonah, my son, and I'm like, hey, so Courtney had his baby. He's like, oh, cool. And I was like, it was born on your birthday. And he's like, yes, I freaking told you, Dad. He's like, I knew it was going to happen. I was like, totally opposite thought. And
That's
just
awesome.
Like, he's so pumped about it. So I was like, oh, cool.
Yeah, I can imagine some kids just being like, it's my birthday.
Yeah.
Nobody shares my birthday.
No, I mean, it could get weird when we have a birthday party. You know?
And you're
Kids
like,
get a little bit like, hey, that's my Ninja Turtle. Like,
yeah.
what are you doing?
Better
Get
have
outta
two
here.
cakes too.
Yeah, it's two separate cakes. How, you guys have kids?
No, we've decided not to. We're not kid people.
Like ever? Or
No,
just like at this juncture in life ever?
No, pretty much just not going to have kids. We will get dogs eventually.
Yeah.
We just have to move out of the spot we're in right now where they don't allow dogs. I know.
There's a place in Durango. Hold on.
I know.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm here with a friend of mine, Sean Mo. But hold on. More importantly, there's a place in Durango, Colorado that does not allow dogs.
A lot of renters can't have dogs.
Really?
It's a big problem, actually. Like a lot of people that are trying to look for spots.
Yeah.
They're like anywhere you'll see it in Facebook Marketplace, like anywhere where that'll actually have a dog. I don't care if it's like a single wide in the middle of nowhere. Anywhere that'll allow me to have a dog. It's actually not as dog friendly as you think when it comes to renting places. So.
That's crazy. Everybody I know has a dog. Every single person. That's wild.
I know. I have dogs I watch. Yeah. My parents who live in Durango have a dog, and then my wife's parents, she grew up here, so they have dogs. So we get time with dogs, but we really just want our own dogs as soon as possible.
Yeah, I could see that. I got a cat I'd be willing to give you.
Oh, nice. Is it a shitty cat? Like,
I mean,
I'm good at rehabbing cats.
I think everybody else loves the cat, but I don't know. He's got a spot in my heart for him, but it like comes around maybe every once a month. Other than that, it's like you stay on your side of the house, I'll stay over here. We're good. If we cross paths in like the kitchen, it's like, I don't trust you, you little fucker.
All of a sudden you can hear like a crescendo of dramatic music, like a Western.
They just never blink. They just watch you and watch you. And I'm like, that's why I hate mountain lions too. It's like they're the worst.
If your house cat was the size of a mountain lion, it would eat your whole family. It does not care.
No. Yeah, he would pretty much murder me. Yeah. He's brutal. So he's okay. I mean, but if you want a cat, I got one for you.
Okay, sweet. All right. Babe, we're getting a cat. Katie, if you're watching this, we're getting a cat soon.
My daughter would kill me for it, but either way, you guys would be happy.
No, you can't. No, now that it's your daughter's cat.
If
that cat dies, you better get one that looks exactly like it, that's full grown. And
yeah. So the good thing with him, and nobody is going to give two shits about this, but the good thing about this stupid cat is that he does not use the litter box. He's outside. So he's inside cat, but he goes outside to do his business, which is amazing. But he also feels the need to the whole neighborhood is his territory. So he will actively go to the neighbor's house. And if the door's open, he walks inside as if like I'm supposed to be here. And so we're like, the whole neighborhood's become comfortable with it. Like, hey, Puma's over here. But I'm like, are you good? At first I was like, oh man, like my neighbor's going to like, I don't even know what you do. Like you call the pound or the Humane Society or whatever on a cat. They know it's mine. And so I'm like, I'm like, but it's just over the year, it's become just like, oh, your cat's at my house again. Like,
Yep. We had
is
one
that
like
okay?
that growing
Yeah, we
up.
gave him some cheese. I hope that's all right. Like, I probably shouldn't do that, but if he's in your house, I can't. Like, thanks.
Yeah, I guess. Could you feed it? Could you? He could use a bath. I know they're supposed to bathe themselves, but I mean, they still got quite a funk on them.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially if they're indoor outdoor cats and they're like going out and rolling around.
Yeah, he sucks, man. I'll give it to you guys for sure.
All right. So what are we going to talk about? I remember you originally reached out to me before you had our mutual friend Ben on here to talk about AI. And while I'm not as well versed as Ben is on the AI, or at least on all of the selling points of why it's a good thing and it's not Skynet and we're all not going to die at the hands of AI that will rise up, because we all abuse our AI right now. I mean, I'm trying to just be nice to Alexa.
Yeah.
But it's hard sometimes when
she
Alexa
fucks
doesn't
up?
do what I want. Yeah. And I'm like, sorry, I cannot turn the lights off right now. I'm like, damn it.
Yeah.
You stupid.
System override.
They're going to remember.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're going to remember.
Yeah. It's, honestly, like I don't, so we don't have to talk at all about anything. Like we can just whatever. AI, I was excited. I was excited to kind of talk about that topic because I mean, it's very topical at this point, but also I'm kind of a nerd about it too. And, it's like, I'll do research, and no matter what kind of research, you're going down a rabbit hole. And it's like, you start to like, be like, oh my God, and you question this and you question that. And the more I kind of research it, I just had some questions about, its involvement. And I mean, it's inevitable at this point. It's not going away. It's just only going to become more of a part of our lives. And so I think the more I think about it and talk that out to myself, like whether I'm driving in the car and be that, it's like, it is just what it is. Like there's no changing it. Yeah. But yeah, at some point I would like to, and if you know anybody or anybody else knows anybody, like I would just want like almost like an engineer.
Okay.
Like a software
engineer.
Software, like
a high level too, not somebody who's doing like app creation, somebody who's creating entire operating systems and is in the, and AI is like a whole separate, you can get a genius that's like, I went to high school with a kid who, when he graduated, he ended up working for Apple and he designed the iOS for, iPads to kind of be in between, a MacBook and an iPhone. But even that is nothing compared to what these people are doing with AI. Like it's got to be a whole separate
and I imagine there's
expertise.
Like gigantic like avenues within that AI term, right? And so I'm just such a weird nerd. I mean, you know me, like went to college to do audio engineering, and so like the nuts and bolts. Like I'm not the musical genius guy. There were some people that we went to school with that were like, they were designed to be a production engineer and be like, I know how to make a song and create it and I understand it. And it just sits in their brain. Me, I'm like such a weird technical dude that I get like the nuts and bolts is like a patch bay. That sounds so boring to most people, but I'm like, oh no, dude, check this out. We're like, there's like a running joke. It's like, sorry, just I thought about a good friend from college. Do you know the Mighty Boosh?
Yeah.
Man, they've got this one skit, and he's like literally taking and like patching in. He's like, I'm gonna use this pen on my floor and generate this soul tooth wave and patch it through this fucking dying crab to give it that real oaky timbre, so every time I say patch bay, like that just came out of nowhere. But
that's so funny.
But yeah, they're just nuts and bolts. I'm a nuts and bolts kind of guy.
Yeah.
And I really wanted somebody to come on that could scare the bejesus out of me. So that way that it kind of sparks that like, okay, well, what about if this and that and like just dance in and out of like their realm for a second, because it's weird. It's like we all use it. Yeah. But it's like if I had to tell somebody like how my iPhone does an AirDrop, and I'm like, I don't fucking know. Like
that whole file just flies.
I connect it to Bluetooth, but they're like, yeah, but it's the same quality. I'm like, yeah, I don't know. I have no clue. I just know that it works. And I use ChatGPT to do stupid shit because I think it's funny what it spits out sometimes. But I don't know. I have no fucking clue how that stuff actually works. And so that was when I put that post up, I was like, man, I need like a guy, like an engineer mindset to come in. And it'd probably be the most boring podcast ever, but I know I would be sitting here just like, oh yeah,
Tell me more, dude.
What if
This
you
is
did
just for me.
Yeah.
I'm watching this at home by myself.
Yeah.
But I got something scary for you with AI, and it's pretty topical because I'm not sure if you're following what's going on with the Writers Guild in Hollywood. The Writers Guild strike. This happened once before in 2008. Remember, this was like when Heroes was huge on TV, and like all these shows stopped, and then they had these scab writers that came in because they were all the writers were striking. They're trying to get money based on they're trying to renegotiate because all the things that have been going on with like streaming, they're not getting paid. They're not very transparent with how, like, when let's say you're a writer on Seinfeld back in the day, you got paid for when it came out, and then when the reruns come out and they're playing on TBS ad nauseum, you get paid every time that it showed, and you get paid quite a bit. But now with streaming platforms, Netflix doesn't tell you how many times your show is being watched. They kind of keep that close to the chest. Then how they monetize it is all kind of shady. So the writers are really worried now that they're on strike, does this give Hollywood the chance to be like, okay, we want a new Rocky movie. Feed all of the scripts to every other Rocky movie and the Creed movies into this, and it will generate a script for a brand new movie that will work. It will be structured properly. It will have the right lines. It will have the right callbacks. It'll have all this stuff in it. So now we might see things like the creativity, not just these images you're seeing, not just the AI voices. I mean, I'm sure you heard that James Earl Jones sold his voice to Disney essentially so they could use that he could be Darth Vader forever. But there's a lot of voice actors I have a friend who's a really big voice actor in Hollywood, and he's like, there's a whole area of voice acting where you're a voice match. You can voice match for people so that say that you're doing the Lego movie or something. They're not going to be able to get, like the Lego Batman movie, you're not going to get Christian Bale or Michael Keaton to do that voice. But we can find somebody that matches it, even though it's Will Arnett, and that's a whole separate thing. But AI is starting to take a lot of jobs, and that's what people are really worried about now. I mean, you think about the Skynet thing, and that can be scary, but I mean, there's so many safeguards in place. But it's like our graphic designers going to go away since you can generate these amazing images? Are writers going to go away in general? Like, would you even need a writer I mean, I guess you could give it parameters to write something new, but when it comes to sequels and stuff, you could AI generate any sequel script.
Yeah. So, dude, I did this thing the other day. It was crazy. So, I was, there's a couple of like writing programs right now. So like, obviously these companies are reaching out to people to write original content so that they can sell it then to these AI companies to generate all these topics, right, at will. And at one time they were paying like $5 per word. Like people would literally write a 200 words, something like that, and they would make really good money. And so now they've kind of started to put it back. But there's a couple of companies that are still trying to break into that scene that have like the most bullshit, like, question and answer to get you approved through the system. So it was hilarious. They were like, you need to write 200 words on, what you can do to boost your social media algorithm, and do not plagiarize at all. We will check you. And so what did I do just to be a smartass? I went through ChatGPT and I was like, I need a 200-word essay on why social media will be diminished from AI in blog post in the blog post world and be 100% plagiarized. And so I ran that through a checker like right before I put it into the system, and it was like 70% plagiarized. And it was crazy. And so I did that
before you ran it, because they have those other services that you get where you take whatever ChatGPT gives you, then you run it through and it changes enough that it's not plagiarized, and it also doesn't trigger any AI things that detect AI. And they kind of knock, because I'm feeling that's where social media is going to go eventually. Facebook, Instagram, TikTok.
Sure.
When they recognize that the caption copy is written by AI, if they can recognize it, they're going to knock down the reach because they don't see it as genuine. They're all about they're all about making a shitload of money. But they always say it's all about, we want genuine, real content.
Real content, yes. So I left it, but it was, so I basically applied twice, right? And so one of them, I left it plagiarized, and it was instantaneously flagged and kicked back. I just thought the article was funny because I flipped it on its ear and tried to make it 100% plagiarized to see if it would skate through the system. The second one did go through, and I haven't got confirmation of whether I've been accepted or not. But it was, I will say if anybody's listening to this or fact checking or whatever, that was 100% ChatGPT. I didn't write a single word other than what I wanted ChatGPT to spit back out of me.
Damn.
600 word essay. I need this thing. Boom, 5 seconds. And then I ran it through a corrector. It changed 92% of the plagiarism.
Yeah.
And it was like, this is skating. This is getting through a system as original content.
Okay.
Using another section of AI to
And it gives you like a percentage of
yeah. Well, it
just kind
shows
of a
you
scale.
like significant, like red flag, significant plagiarism. How many lines are plagiarized? Better than half of the work. It was
what
crazy.
do they consider plagiarism? It's how many words have to be exactly the same in a string?
See, that's what
What
I
are the parameters?
I don't know that. But that was the thing that kind of like jumped out at me. Is like, well, okay, so if I start changing, and then so when I did change it,
Yeah.
it came back as like, okay, this is original content. So what did it do? It moved around. It's probably like if there's more than 3 words consecutive on the same topic, then. But that's the other thing is like you have so many of these writers writing for these entities that they're taking original content, dumping them in, then ChatGPT and other instances are looking at those and then spitting those back out. Those are then getting published. So it's like, yeah, at some point it's like everything, if you just type like anything right now and you use that as like your essay or your whatever, 1,000% there's plagiarism in that. 1,000%.
Wow.
It is not original. I mean,
Yeah.
I would challenge anybody right now. Just if you don't have a ChatGPT account, go set up one. There's no issues with it. Type in anything. I want a 1,000-word essay on frogs. It'll spit it out in 3 seconds. You can do the rainforest, whatever. And grab that, go into a checker. You can probably use like Grammarly has a pretty decent checker. It's free. You put it in there, check it, guarantee.
Yeah, it's almost all
Guaranteed it's
plagiarized.
fine. Yeah.
And I've used it, so I don't use it. So it helps in my job, especially when let's use one of my clients, Steamworks, for example. I've been working and doing social media for them for almost 10 years now. So it's like, how many fucking things can you say about this beer I've featured a million times over and over again? So now I use it to like help kind of spark something in my brain. So I'll put it in and be like, give me a short social media caption about this beer. And this is the description of the beer, and it'll spit it out. And then I edit it because I can tell it's using this language that's used in all these social media captions. And so it makes it seem, and that's another thing you said, it's plagiarized. So all of if let's say I try to do the same post for a client that I did 10 years ago, it's still going to recognize if I just copied and pasted the caption copy. It's going to know. So I have to write something completely different. So what it's doing is just grabbing stuff from everybody else's posts that have been going on forever. So it's already, to a degree, I think, starting to see that it's not genuine. And I think like what you were saying with how these people are feeding this stuff in there. It's like, are we going to become, is all business going to be a bunch of idea guys and nobody that does the grunt work? It's like, the Steve Jobses where they're like, I want the internet in my pocket. And now all of you engineers figure out how the fuck that works because I'm an idea guy. So we're going to have all these idea guys just feeding these things into AI and having them generate it. And idea guys are like chefs, like too many chefs. Is it going to spoil the pot? And by the pot, I mean like society.
Yeah. I mean, I think so. Taking that back for a second, going back to the Writers Guild.
Yeah.
I still think that there is such a vein for like humanity, the human character that is writing something that even if they're the best writer, that they accidentally make a mistake, right? It has a human nature behind it. You can tell when it's written that way. There's such a need for that because even if these guys were to say, okay, whether or not we agree or disagree that basically movies are the same script with a couple of changes and they reproduce them anymore. And it's just this and this and this again. There's so much that's why when something seems original and new, I mean, people cannot get it enough. I mean, I get so mad at Apple TV because I can't binge. If it's a new show like Silo, it's fucking going off the chain with that show. And then I hit the 3rd episode and I'm like, no, now I'm hooked into this for a week. But anyways, if they start using, whatever platform to spit out these scripts, I mean, are they going to be original? They're going to feel original to the audience.
Probably not.
Like,
I mean,
how many things can you render different
Yeah.
to make it feel new and fresh? I mean, it may be the first couple 10, you get to 100 scripts, 200 scripts, 1,000 scripts, everything is just going to be beige.
And the studio, the people, the studio heads, the producers, the people who don't want to pay these writers and are not gonna, are gonna fight this. They don't care because they see this all as they're formulas, they're formulaic. And I mean, they've said, I forget who said it. It's old adage, but like there's only 7 stories and there's just different versions of them. There's really, it's like man versus beast, man versus self, man versus, and by man, I mean just human beings in general. It's just a old patriarchal thing that they still say, man versus. But and the thing is if I've been a movie nerd my whole life. I went to film school for a couple years. Like I recognize the framework of every movie now. I know exactly what's going to happen when the rising action hits, when this is going to happen, and how they're going to wind down through. I can see it all happening. And the truly unique movies, I think, and TV shows are ones that they still follow that, but they somehow make me forget. I forget and am somehow surprised. And I don't think that we'll get that with AI. It'll be way too. And how much are they going to use the AI? Are they going to use it to generate an entire script and then they go, now we can pay 5 interns to touch this thing up and make it more original rather than pay somebody who's an established writer untold amount of money for their script? Because they generally, depending on their deal and how big they are, they just get a flat rate for we're buying this story from you. You know,
I think that's more of an like that seems more of an easier step. Is like we're gonna write, I don't know, 400,000 words, and then we're going to pay, like you say, some interns to kind of tailor this and massage it to make it appear as if it's new. But you are right, though. Like, I don't have a nearly as keen of an eye for like a movie as you do, but I can clearly see when something I'm like, man,
I've seen this a million
times. That's Joe's character. Like what? And the same Simon in this one. Like what the hell is good? And so I think the but in a weird way, if we get, it's kind of like that like nostalgic feel that I see right now. And I don't know where this is coming from because I am such an audio buff that you cannot deny there's a certain quality of hearing something on a vinyl record, but it is not necessarily better than a produced item in the highest digital format that you can get now. Like there can be so much more clarity, but in that clarity, you sometimes often you lose depth, right? You lose dynamic range, and that's what you get on a vinyl record. But all these people, like the resurgence of vinyl, like right now is just crazy. Like, but it's almost nostalgic. You're like, oh, we printed it on vinyl, it sells out. Like we sold 200,000 copies of the vinyl single. But people want that, right? They feel like there's that tangibility to it, and it almost feels original. Even though you can have the same song on Apple iTunes right now, they want to get
They've
it
gotten
there.
better. Like the M4As are a little more dynamic than they used to be because MP3s were. I still have old MP3s that I got off LimeWire in like 2003, and I listen to some of those, and I'm like, oh my god, how the hell were we listening to that? But then I've got like a buddy who's a vinyl nerd, but he also like only for digital stuff. He only does the lossless files. I forget what the file types are, what the file type at the end. But I was like, these are like 50, 60, sometimes 80 megabytes per track.
Yeah, they're huge. But that's the thing is like you take up massive amounts of space to get the fidelity in the digital realm, And so I don't know. I feel like if AI takes a hold of the writing scene behind most scripts, I feel at a certain point in time, the vast majority of people, even like myself, that aren't really movie buffs, would start to realize like this is garbage. Like I want something real. I want, and so it's like then that would have that like pendulum swing, and maybe it doesn't come all the way back, but I think that people would be searching for something organic and real, and it'd be like, well, I clearly tell a difference. But the other thing too is like it's a little bit scary because like some of it's only going to get better. So in my feeble brain going, all right, well, at some point, people are going to get sick of it. Well, what if it starts to get better and all of a sudden it realizes like we have to change this because this recognizes some string of code that looks really similar to the movie from the 1980s, and all of a sudden it makes a change. So then it almost becomes unrecognizable that it is written that way. So it's like there's the fear of like that. Yeah. But
and then where are we going to get to a point where it's like organic food?
Yeah.
Where it's just like these movies have like a organic, not AI, like non-GMO, non-AI generated, and you're paying just a little bit extra.
Yeah. If you want to watch it, it's going to cost you, but it's original.
Yeah, it's like 3D. You're like paying $4 more because actual people wrote the movie this time.
Yeah. Have you started? Do you watch anything on like Apple TV?
Apple TV, Ted Lasso's one thing I watched on Apple TV. I'm only 2 seasons in, but I'm a big fan of that. I wanted to watch the Jason Momoa show, but I haven't given that a shot yet. I have all of these streaming platforms, and like Apple TV for some reason, I'm like, I can't pay for that one too, and I kind of rotate through based on what's coming out. Like, oh, I'm a Halo nerd, so I was like, I want to see this Halo show, which was not good. But I was like, I want to see this Halo show. I'll get a couple months of Paramount Plus and then move to Peacock if something's on there because I mean, I don't want to get to the point where we're paying $150 a month just like we were for cable.
Yeah.
The whole point was to kind of be paying less than that. Yeah.
Yeah. Man, I honestly, and it's hard. Like I was saying, like Apple has done a good deal where what they'll do is they'll put out a banger but they'll only release 3 episodes. So they let you just stream like the first 3 hours and then you're hooked,
Yep.
But they've had a couple of really, like the Jason Momoa show, the C, that was really good.
Yeah.
Exceptionally well written. I'm really into this show Silo, and I think
I've seen the
newest
trailer.
Oh, dude. Like, man, like,
looks
yes,
dope.
super good. Very well written. There's a couple of decent, like, known actors, but almost a B like rate of actors, but they're all doing good. And it's kind of weird. I think Netflix actually started to really capitalize on that, where they were using like unknown actors that were really, really good.
Yep.
And it distracted from the bullshit of like, I'm just going to take this whole thing in and I'm going to watch it for what it is. And you stopped like being like, oh, did you see the new, I don't know, such and such, like Tom Cruise or whatever movie. And so I really like that. But so Apple's done exceptionally well with that. They've got a couple of really good series on there.
What's
But
The Morning? They also do the one with Steve Carell, and I wanted to check that one out too.
I watched the first season. That was good. I mean, it was super, I mean, like it, love it, hate it, or whatever. It was very topical at the time when they released that. It was, cancel culture, like big time. But it was, the way that it was written was good. I can't say that it wasn't a good script for the first season. I haven't checked out the second season, but that was a good one. They've got a couple other really good ones on there, but it's, I do agree with you. It's like you find yourself, instead of like, I remember like a couple of my friends' dads growing up, like they'd be like, like scrolling through the satellite and it'd be like the old one, you hear it out the bedroom, and they're just like scrolling. You get lost in the scroll of finding something, or then you hit commercial and you go to the other one. I feel like that's like bounce from Netflix, you bounce to iTunes or
and
Apple
flipping
TV.
through a bunch of shit that you've seen, or
what is all this crap?
not interested in. I'm not sure if you have. Everybody has Prime. The great thing about Prime is their video content, their original stuff, is just a vanity project for Jeff Bezos, aka Lex Luthor. He doesn't make any money. Nobody's getting Prime just for the content. It's like a bonus you get because almost everybody uses it for the shipping. And I don't know if you've been on there, but the content is just. There's every terrible shark movie that's ever been made is on Amazon Prime. Santa Jaws, I'm a shark nerd, so I've watched all of them, and they're awful. One was Sharks of the Corn, just sharks in cornfields for some reason. Avalanche Sharks. So you get these apps where they become a thing, and then they have some of their own original content. And if it's not making money or doesn't make sense, then they just fill it with whatever chaff they can find that was on Hallmark Channel 10 years ago, or old Trauma movies. Are you familiar with Trauma? They did like Toxic Avenger and like The Killer Condom, and that's what they're filling up with. And I feel like that's where we might get, because I mean, even these new writers that are writing these amazing shows for Apple TV, how many scripts does it take to where they can feed all those scripts into the AI and generate something completely new and fresh from it? And they're like, we don't need you guys anymore. You've written enough. You've created enough of a world that we can just keep this going.
Sure. So the unfortunate thing is all they need is one script that kicks fucking ass, and don't tell anybody. Let the results yield what they're going to yield. If it does really, really well, like exceptionally well, and then they come to the table and say, hey, this was completely produced with AI, then it fucks the whole world up.
Yeah, that's true. And just thinking about like the first thing I think that this would work for and that people are going to do is, why would you need anybody to adapt a novel into a script anymore when you could feed a novel in and they could not only write all of the proper dialogue, but distill it down to a 2.5 to 3 hour movie, rather than, because that's got to be the most challenging part, is like, how do we take this book and all of these details and turn it into something that's palatable in such a short amount of time?
Yeah. Have you ever watched The Notebook?
Oh, yes. I saw that in the theater opening weekend with my girlfriend at the time. And I was like, all right, fine. I'll go see your stupid fucking chick flick. And then by the end, I was like, "This is one of the best things I've ever seen." Like, I
didn't realize that the hook at the end. Oh my God.
I know, and I didn't. What they didn't show you in any of the previews really until like how they have the teaser, then the first trailer, second trailer. I don't think until later on, and I missed it, was they didn't show you the the James Garner, like the older folks version of the story.
Yeah.
And that's the part that just shatters your soul when
Sure,
you're watching
yeah.
that. Just where she doesn't remember him. And then when she finally gets her to break through and you're just like, why does my heart hurt so bad?
Well, that was also too, like, you know, I mean, maybe not 100% pre-social media, but for you to have watched
MySpace,
those,
I think,
yeah,
was all we had.
Yeah,
Friendster.
Yeah, but you probably had to either get those trailers either at the movie theater, you know, get there early, watch them, or you know, if you had cable or something, if you were subscribing to cable, you were catching them. So it was like it wasn't. I mean, right now, if I hear about a good movie, I'll go watch all 6 trailers right now and be like, okay, I'm going to watch this. It's going to be really good.
Well, you can. I'm going to show my age. You already could see the white here, but I knew exactly where to find trailers when I was younger because I was such a nerd. They would premiere trailers on Entertainment Tonight, and they would tell you. So I remember when they were like, first look trailer for Batman Forever is going to be on Entertainment Tonight, like Tuesday night at this time. We recorded that shit on a VHS and watched it over and over again. But that was the only way you could see him, or at the movie theater, like you said. Like that's the only way you could get them and watch them over. Because I mean, nowadays people watch trailers over and over again. Then you have whole accounts on YouTube that are dedicated to breaking down trailers, analyzing every frame, going like, hey, look in the corner here. You see a blurry version of what might be this character that we're not sure is in the movie, and they just speculation has become an entire business.
Oh God, dude. I mean, yeah, they'll, you know, easily get 2 million views on a trailer, 45-second trailer, you know, minute 15. And so, yeah, they're probably just monetizing the shit out of the trailer, you know, where it's like they might have had to pay for that. Well, I don't know how did that work?
Ad revenue do we get?
Back in the day, how did that work?
Did
you think they'd have to pay? Like say we go to a movie theater and there's the 5 minutes before and it's 6 different movies and we're watching minute-long trailers, right?
Yep.
And then so how did they get that trailer? Would they have to pay for that ad space to
see? I'm not 100% on that. You'd see, I imagine that there is that is ad space that you have to pay for, but it depends because sometimes like you go to see a Warner Brothers movie and then you see like 2 or 3 Warner Brothers movies that are coming out before it and you go, do these movies, do the trailers ride with the movie?
Gotcha. That makes more sense.
Like, is it because, I mean, back when there were reels, the trailer reel was this whole separate reel that you'd put on and run through that. Then you'd load the movie stuff on. Now it's all digital. It just comes with like a thumb drive. So I don't know. I'd have to ask somebody that works at the movie. My brother worked at a movie theater. I should have asked him, like, do these come together? Are the trailers attached to it like we used to have for like VHSs where that's what I miss about buying the previously viewed VHSs from Blockbuster. You go back to watch a movie and you'd be like, coming next summer, Homeward Bound 2. And you're like, oh yeah, I remember when this movie came out. This was just happening. Or like old VHSs of shit from TV and you can watch the commercials. Like we had a version of the 60s Batman movie because remember the TV show? They had a TV show, then they made a movie of it that they released that year. And like I had this version from TBS that was just littered with the worst Long John Silver's commercials. But I know all those commercials. Those live rent free in my head now. But I don't know, man. That's a good question to figure out whether they have to pay. Because sometimes if you're going, like I went and saw Guardians of the Galaxy 3 and they had a trailer for the new Flash movie that's going to have Michael Keaton back as Batman and everything.
Gotcha.
So I imagine that they didn't get that for free. If you want to especially advertise something that's their direct competitor, that they have to be paying for.
Oh
right?
yeah, they're probably paying a shit pot ton of money. Looking at it that way. How was the third Galaxy?
Oh man,
Guardians of the Galaxy.
I got teary-eyed like 10 times.
Yeah.
And trigger warning, dude, if you want to take your kids to see it, it's a hard PG-13, man.
Is it?
And when it comes to animal body horror almost.
Oh dude, see that's
like these you've got like this little otter and this little like thing that have been like turned into half robots in really morbid ways. And they're adorable once you hear their voices and you start to feel for them. They're also scary, but I mean, if your kids are animal lovers, it's going to create you just give them a gift card for whatever local therapist because they're gonna need it later on.
That's my son wanted to go like opening weekend and I was like, yeah, it just didn't work out.
And how old's your son now?
He just turned 11.
Okay, 11 I think is 11 be okay. But I mean, if it's 7, 8, 9, and it depends on, I mean, it also depends. People don't realize you can rely on the MPAA as much as you want, but every kid's different, I imagine. And it's like my parents knew that I was a big fan of movies and understood that I didn't have any kind of weird blending reality where I got scared of horror movies. Like the first horror movie I ever saw, I was like, ooh, I wonder how they did that effect. I wonder how they made it look like that.
Yeah.
Some people don't have that. And the people that can't watch horror movies because it really fucks them up. So it's like, does your kid kind of get really into stuff and
Yeah,
it's real to a degree?
Yeah, his imagination is a little bit too close to the heart, I think. So we might wait a little bit on that one. But yeah, I mean, the first two, like that's like his movie, that's his jam.
Yeah,
so I'm like,
they're so cool, man.
I almost want to do it. Yeah, I mean, they were just so well done.
And the soundtracks. Remember when soundtrack it reminds me of the 90s when a movie soundtrack was a big deal. Pulp Fiction soundtrack. My mom had a copy. I had a copy. My grandparents had a copy.
Dude, I
of
remember
the Pulp Fiction soundtrack.
Yeah, I forget who gave it to me. It was on a cassette though, but it was the it was the Above the Rim soundtrack.
Oh yeah, that's like a top 10 soundtrack of all time.
Yeah, and it was amazing. I'm almost like I'm really drawing a blank, but was that was Regulators on that? Mount Up. It was a Clear Black Night.
Yep.
A Clear Black. Oh man, that was.
There's some versions of songs that are only on that album too, and depending on what streaming service you're on, like I don't think you can't buy it on iTunes, the Above the Rim soundtrack, because weird licensing issues before they knew about what digital would be. That's why De La Soul wasn't on any streaming platform up until like 2 months ago.
Really?
One of the greatest hip hop bands of all time. They didn't have the licensing handled for all of the crazy samples that they used. They were all only involved cassette tapes and records and CDs, and that was it. So once it moved forward to they were like, we're not gonna. They had a big fight with what are we negotiating? Who's getting paid this much for this? Because now it's moving into the future, and so you lose entire discographies by like epic, amazing artists.
Yeah.
Because of this bullshit. I think it's such bullshit.
Yeah, that is crazy. Like it is. What really aggravates me with streaming, and I don't know if it's I use Spotify, but it's weird. I like the compression algorithm that Spotify uses. A little bit more for podcasts. So I listen to a ton of podcasts on Spotify, which is really weird, but it's just me being such an audiophile. I hear it and it just sounds better. But I listen to a ton of music. So I'll go in and I pay the monthly subscription so you can download whatever you want. And I'll download an album that I know like by heart. And then you'll go to open it up and there's like 5 of the songs available. And I'm like, well, hold on. Okay. I'll even purchase these. I can't purchase them. They're just not available like on iTunes.
Do they have any like guest people on it?
I don't know. It's just I've always wondered because it's like it'll just be grayed out. Like, and it's listed chronologically, you know, like as part of the album, but it's just not there. And I'm like, okay, well, are they working through something like it? But it pisses you off because it's always like one really, really good song that just takes you back to that moment. And like you literally downloaded that album
just for
that fucking song. And you're like, oh, it's not here, man.
And then that's why pirating will still stay relevant because that's
dude.
the only
I miss
place.
Pirating. Like
you can still do it,
like,
man.
Yeah, and I was in a band, and like it was all good, and you know, it's like goes against everything that we were trying to achieve. But I would steal the shit out of some music, dude.
I use it for things that you just simply can't find anymore.
I would steal some software, bro.
Dude,
I ran Pro Tools for like a decade.
Yeah, dude. No, I used to pirate. Like I used the 2003 version of Photoshop until like 2012 because I was like, I'm not buying it again. I'm still going to use it.
Just never goes to the internet.
It was like an old G4 I had like back in the day. But like, just think, I have that issue with Amp Radio. So Amp Radio is something that I do. I'm a DJ on there. I'm not sure if you've heard of it.
What is that? Yeah, let's get.
Okay, so Amp is Amazon's app that basically turns everybody that wants to into a DJ. So it's kind of like you're hosting a show, like a podcast.
Okay.
A lot of people just plug in wired headphones with a microphone into it, or you can use adapters to plug in something like I plug in my Blue Yeti into it. So it sounds really good. And then you're running a radio show. You build a playlist. They have licensing for almost all songs. It's kind of like Spotify where you'll see those albums and you'll be like, oh, amazing. They have the album on there, but there's only a handful of songs, or they'll have certain albums from certain bands. So you build a playlist and then people can call in and then there's a chat and it's all run from the inconvenient part is it's all run from your phone. I run a show from my phone. I listen to shows from your phone. So you have to like, if you have an older phone, the thing gets real hot and sometimes people's just crash and their show ends. If you don't have like an iPhone 12, and it's only on iPhone right now that you can actually have the full experience because they're still working on you can listen to it on Alexa. You can listen to it through an Echo, but it's really hard because you have to say like exactly who the person is that you want to listen to. And if they're not on, if it's like 2 minutes away from their show starting, it won't jump right onto it and it's tough to navigate, but it's super fun. It's pretty new. There's a lot of fancy people that are on there and have their big shows. Like Nicki Minaj has a show there. Joe Budden moved his podcast directly to AMP. Nick Cannon just got on there so he could talk about all 28 of his new kids that are coming over the next year. But then there's a lot of creators like me and other people that we build these playlists, and I've kind of gotten into the 90s realm. I have a show every Friday called All That 90s in a Bag of Chips, and I was playing off of all that in a bag of chips, that thing we used to say in the 90s. Yeah. Some of the people don't understand that, and they think it's funny to keep asking me, where's my chips all the time? Like, where's my free chips? And I'm like, I'm so fucking over this.
Yeah.
So, and that's like an eclectic 90s mix. I do all sorts of 90s music and then soundtrack songs from the 90s peppered in throughout. And then Tuesdays, I try to do one where it's all about collabs these days, where you have somebody else call in and they're essentially the co-host. So you're doing a co-host gig. And it's pretty easy to monetize. They have a creator fund right now. I was on it for a month. The next month, they were like, here's $350 for your shows. I was like, what? And then the next month, they were like, here's $550 for your shows. I was like, what? And then this month, they were like, here's $680. And I was like, holy shit, they're really wanting to keep people on here. And I'm like, I have 21 people listening at once. So there's probably, I would say, like 50 or 60 people that come to each show, but it shows you how at the end what your peak listeners were. What was the total number, the most that you had at one time? And then I get like 44 hearts on it because you can heart the show and then you can chat. They look at things like, are you keeping people engaged in the chat? Are people calling into your show? And they're just paying any Tom, Dick, and Harry that's going to be on there. So it's
so is it just... So you have your own channel, your own playlist and people would then have to find that, or is it you've got this like huge batch of music and there's just all these time slots that you're dipping into, like Nicki Minaj is here, or is it like a channel like on a YouTube page?
It's kind of you have a profile, right? Okay. So you have a profile similar to a social media profile. Yeah. You'll see your icon, and then you can put a link on there, and then you have a little bio information. Then it shows your show schedule. So whatever that you've already pre-created. So you go and you create a show and go, and you could be smart about it and go, I'm not going to do a show. If you're like a hip hop person, if that's all that you do, especially newer music, you're probably not going to put your show up against Nicki Minaj's show. You're not going to do that because that would be ridiculous. That's your audience is probably all going to be there. So you can look and see that, but you can really just create a show at any time you want down to the minute. Like my show's at 4:01 p.m. and then you build the playlist and then you sit there and you just play the songs and then talk in between, and it's like a regular radio show, but you're running it from your phone, which I'll say it again is kind of a pain in the ass.
So they don't have like an iPad app yet at this point?
I think you can run it on an iPad. You can run it on an iPad, but it depends. I haven't tried, so I don't know if there's issues with it if you're trying to run it with an older one. There's a lot of glitches still in the system, like the chat will disappear and say you can't see the chat. You keep hitting refresh. It's only a year old. But the community is one of the most supportive online communities I've ever seen in my life. Everybody's super supportive of each other's shows. Everybody helps lift everybody else up. There's a few outliers that get kind of petty about stuff, and they kind of have their own small groups of people that go to their shows and they just talk shit about other people. But I mean, it's very, very rare, which in the online community, man, that's, how negativity is what sells. So, I mean, it's nice to be a part of this community where everything's so positive and just so uplifting for everyone.
So Joe Budden's doing a podcast through AMP.
So he had a podcast before, right?
It was a super
big podcast. So he moved it to AMP. So he runs, and with those guys, they're probably running something like you've got here where they're running a board with multiple things and then they feed it in. But they all have to be feeding it into a phone. It all has to go into you have this giant board, then it goes into a USB. That USB goes into like a USB 3 lightning to lightning adapter, and it's all getting run from the phone still.
So it's live though.
It's live. And that's the crazy thing is that it's live. There's no, if you're lucky enough, if you're big enough, or if you have enough engagement, they'll sometimes select you for replays where you can listen to shows that were on before, but the chat's not live and you can't see what people were chatting. You can just basically listen to it like it's a podcast. And if you stop it though, then you leave the app and you come back, it starts it again from the beginning, which sucks. So you can't, like a podcast, you can't listen to it in spurts because a lot of us do that. Like I do that with yours. I'll listen to yours for like a half hour in the morning and then I got to go out to a client. And then I'll listen to the next half hour like when I come back to my office. You can't really do that with that. So it's appointment. It's like appointment television and appointment radio. It's like Stern. You got to be there. You got to listen to it when it's happening.
That's crazy. That's why. So it's basically it's really not a podcast. It's probably like it's more like a radio show or an actual broadcast.
Yeah, but he moved. So he still does the podcast. I imagine
but
he does it live on the show, and then now he has access to all that music and can play it. Because the issue we've had with if you want to do a music podcast, you can't even just pay ASCAP and all of the licensing fees, because if you have a downloadable file, that's something completely different than if it's live on radio. So when it's live, it's totally okay to use this music because Amazon has paid for all the licensing, for like even independent licensing. There's some crazy shit you can filter. Your album's on there. The history of albums on there, and I'm going to play some music from it one of these days, but it's not 90s because I'm the 90s guy.
Sure.
And I do different shows every now and again, but like they have tons of shit, but then they'll have stuff like no Incubus music's on there, oddly. And so you wonder what were their licensing deals? Are they super protective over their music? Some artists are like that. Like Neil Young is not on Spotify because of Joe Rogan. He removed all of his stuff. Yeah.
That was a huge deal, man.
Yeah.
That's what. So it's called AMP.
It's called AMP. Yeah.
All right. And your show is Thursdays 4:01 p.m.
It's Friday nights, 6 p.m. Mountain, but I always just say 5 p.m. Pacific. Everybody forgets. A lot of people that do this are from the East Coast and the West Coast.
Sure.
And they just, for some reason, nobody understands Mountain Time because they don't even say it on TV. It's the least populated time zone, so nobody ever. It's always like, watch it at 5 p.m. this time, 8 p.m. Eastern, or 7 p.m. Central, and then all the Mountain people go, well, I guess I'll just go an hour before Central. But Fridays at 5 or 6 p.m. our time.
Okay.
And then Tuesdays at 6 p.m. too. Every Tuesday and Friday, 6 p.m. Mountain.
Nice. How long is your show?
It depends.
What's the situation?
Generally, I try to do 2.5 to 3 hours.
Holy shit. Okay.
Because I try to get 25 songs in each playlist. And it takes a while to curate these things, man, especially when I'm trying to. For the 90s one on Fridays, I'm trying to be so eclectic and that's kind of how I grew my audience. I had a little something for everybody. So it's like open with a hip hop song. So let's get 93 Till Infinity on there. And then, okay, let's then kind of fade into an R&B song. And then let's do like a lighter, maybe like a Lisa Loeb, more indie alternative song. And then get to like a harder Green Day song. So we do 4 songs and then the soundtrack song. And so we flow up and down like that. And so it takes me way more hours to build the playlist than actually.
So you build the playlist ahead of time?
Mm-hmm. You can build the playlists. Yeah. You want me to show you on here, or is that not going to be good for the?
No, I don't care. It's all good. It's all good.
But yeah, I can kind of show you what one of my what this looks like. So this is my profile. I'm not sure if they can see it here.
Not really.
But that's the profile, and then you can see all the shows in here. So these are the shows that are already scheduled.
Oh, okay.
So it has the description of it. Then you can say go to show. If I want to, I can just like go live right now.
Okay.
But then the playlist is here, and then you can add songs and move them around here. So so you can build those early, and I suggest anybody that's doing this, build the playlist early, because the people that go in there and go, I have 5 songs and then I'll just take requests. There's no guarantee that people are going to be calling in or even suggesting anything in the chat. You can't. Unless you've been on there for a while. I've been on there for 2.5 months now, and I've gotten a decent following. Because on here, if you've got like 350 people following you, that's pretty big. If you've got 1,000, you're big. And if you're Nicki Minaj and stuff, they have multiple thousands, but they have a built-in audience, so it's totally different. But yeah, man, I wanted to get it on the ground floor on something because the podcasting thing was fun. I did it for a while, but I always wanted to. Really, the reason I like podcasting is I was such a huge fan of Loveline and Howard Stern when I was younger. I really wanted to be a radio DJ, but I wanted to talk more, but I wanted to be able to play music. And I was so shit scared of putting music into podcasts, hearing some stories of these small guys that just get these letters like, well, it looks like this, we reached out to Apple, your episode was downloaded this many times, and so this is how many counts of this crime of copyright infringement that we're coming after you for.
Yeah.
And you're like, what the, they're not going after they're not going after Rogan. They're not going after Kevin Smith. They're going after these smaller people to, I don't know, fucking make an example. Like when they used to hang pirates in front of ports. I'm
always freaked out about it. Like we obviously are recording the screen now. And so like, there's been a couple of shows, like I had a good friend of mine, Ryan Johnson, on, and we usually play a game and I never, even the chimes I always think about like, oh, hold on, this is this game making this specific noise. Hopefully it's, but it freaks me out even putting something on the screen. And I know that, you look at like your user agreement with YouTube or Spotify and you read it, it's fucking Greek, man. Yep. It's like,
and it's like, ridiculously long.
Do you accept this? It's like, yeah. And then like you look at all the community guidelines, and I'm asking a buddy the other day, I'm like, because we're trying to work on a few sponsorships for the show, and so we're like on YouTube especially, we're drastically far away from being monetized. Like you have to have 1,000 subscribers right now. We have like 230 or 240 or something, and then you have to have like 10,000 hours listened. or watched, quote unquote, within a year. And so like right now we have 800 hours.
Yep.
We've been doing this for about 7 months. So it's like,
Yeah.
we're a ways away from monetization. So I'm like, okay, well, if we can get a couple of local sponsors to maybe just offset the burden that is our rent here and then our production fees and things like that.
You had to have a pretty big initial investment too with all of this.
Yeah.
I mean, just this. How much did this cost? This is dope, by the way.
Yeah, but that was like one of those spins, like, when you're at Target and you're like, I don't need it, but I fucking want it.
Yeah, that happens to me every time I go
Yeah.
to Farmington to go to Target. I'm just, my wife goes to the clothes and I'm like, cool, I'm going to go over by all the toys.
Yeah,
I'm going to see if they got that
I was just checking out
Infinity
that new-
Gauntlet Lego set.
That new 75-inch TV looks dope. It's only $450.
I know. What the hell happened? Howard, remember when TVs were giant, heavy things you needed 4 people to carry?
Oh, yeah.
And they cost thousands and thousands of dollars. Even now, you want a 4K smart TV with that even, has the audio out, like the high quality optical audio output, all this stuff. It's like $600-700 tops.
Yeah, I mean, I went in to get a TV. I got that on sale. It was an open box. It was like Best Buy classic deal.
Nice.
I'm in Farming, like, let's go see what they have. And I worked at Best Buy in college, so I know like kind of the gamut that they do. So every once in a while you go in there and I usually go to the gaming section because that's where I worked, and that's usually where the most nerds are, but they're usually cool. And if you talk to them, they'll have a conversation. If you can kind of get in that lane with them. And then I'm like, hey, man, I know you don't work in the TVs, but can you come look at this with me? And he's like, yeah, sure. So I go over there, and it's like open box. And he's like, oh, man, I think it's damaged. I was like, nah, this is legit. Nobody's marked it as an open box yet, though. So I was like, how about you walk this up to the floor with me, and we're going to get this bad boy. And it was like $300 less, but still.
Was there commission? Do you get commission if you talk to somebody when you're selling something to somebody?
So it depends. So
as a salesperson?
I worked at Best Buy in 2007 through 2008. So
that was right when it was like they had to shift because Circuit City, their biggest competitor, went away, and somehow Best Buy is still around.
At the time, and I can't speak for it now, but at the time, the only people that got commission were like if you worked at a Best Buy that had a Magnolia home theater.
Okay.
You got commission off those sales because those were like $10,000, $12,000, $15,000 sales. And then you set up in-home installation and things like that. And then also if you worked in a normal store that just had the TV selection, and then it depended on the store and maybe some of the management, like some of the bigger PC sales, like if they were above X amount of cost, those folks would get commission. Okay. But most of the, like if you're working in cell phones or if you're working in whatever, it was
you're helping someone find printer ink. They're not. Yeah.
It was just hourly. So but yeah, I mean, I dug working at Best Buy. It was kind of crazy.
Dude, with how you were explaining how much of a nerd you are with certain things, like you were the guy that were like, you probably got passed off to. Like they were like, you need to talk to Kyle.
Yeah.
Like you're asking me all these questions. I don't know shit. Kyle will tell you what do you want.
Well, do you got to burn it? So the thing of it is like when you're there, like it gets busy, but it's like any other thing. It gets busy at certain like times of a day and then it's dead. So if somebody walks in and you got a 5-hour shift ahead of you, it's like, I'm going to bullshit with this guy as long as I can. Cause then it looks to my boss on the camera like I'm doing something. I don't give a shit if he buys anything. You want to go play God of War? Let's go, dude. We'll freaking, let's go.
That's better than stalking. And it'd be like, you better, it looks like we need you to go out and, damn, we need to go to the DVD section. No, I don't want to go. Not the media.
The worst part about any type of industry like that is having to work no matter what, all hands on deck Black Friday.
Oh yeah,
and
dude,
it starts
I can't imagine.
at 1 a.m. in the morning. And
I did restaurants and I did a Starbucks for a couple. I did a Starbucks near a mall for a couple Black Fridays, and I opened. This is when I was like 21, and I was like, I'm tall and I'm hardcore, which I'm not, Catholic school kid, but I'm gonna be a bouncer at a fucking hip hop club, and I'm the only club in downtown San Jose that somebody had been stabbed with a Corona bottle and killed. And my mom reminded me of that all the time when she's like, "You just don't get stabbed." But I would work that shift because it was decent money for short, and then I would just do graveyards essentially, and then open Starbucks at 4:30 in the morning. So 4:30 to 4:30 on Black Friday. With all these people and all they want are, can I get an extra caramel macchiato? And I'm like,
hardest drink on the planet to make that just takes like, it's just like, yeah. Ugh.
Can you cover the inside of the cup with the, I'm trying to get diabetes real quick.
Yeah.
So
more sprinkles, please. Can we double sprinkle? Like, all right. Here you go, bitch. Boom, the whole cup.
Yeah. And I mean, for that, it was thankfully, there was a lot of people that were just like, give me a drip coffee.
Yeah.
I'm like, cool. But then you're like, can you put half a Splenda in the bottom before you put the espresso in there? I want 1 shot of caffeinated espresso, 1 shot of, and then I want soy milk, but I want the foam to be whole milk foam that you put on top. And I'm like,
wait, what?
What? Who? I'm like, when you're like, oh, you missed some hugs. I'm like, you got hugged too much as
Yeah.
a kid. You
Yeah.
have been coddled, and I'm having to deal with this shit.
Jesus Christ. Well, that's crazy. I mean, the amp thing, that is wild. That seems like I'm going to actually check out that platform because in a weird way, getting back to, it was funny. So we went to a drive up coffee shop this morning with a guy that lives here in town. And so him and I think it's either his fiance or his wife, they're managing it. And so, but my son was like, hey, how do you know that guy? You know, it's like every once in a while you bump into somebody and he's curious. So I'm
especially
like,
around here, man.
I was like, yeah, I was like, it was crazy. Cause like, you know, he's kind of the person that introduced me into like the broadcast world. And I was telling him like, you know, there was a broadcast studio that used to air the Avalanche games. And so we had a contract, or he had a contract, but he would bring me as a tag along. He was a senior, I was a freshman.
Nice.
And so we would go to this broadcast studio in Durango. And
Wait, was it Heath?
No, this gentleman's name is Zach.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I was like, I know a guy named Heath that has that kind of setup.
Yeah. So we would go and we'd be listening to the game, and then it would like a cue mark, and then it would go to national advertisement.
Okay.
But people would pay to listen to local radio. So we would have to punch in local advertisement during the same exact thing. And so I started kind of understanding that whole world of broadcast. We never got to talk. Like that was the weird thing. And so like what we would do, like we would go in earlier, we'd go in and fuck around, and then we would start to like get like actually like get on the microphone and like get that feel. And it's really weird. Like nobody ever knows who you are. I mean, unless you're Howard Stern, like everybody, like I imagine what's the one of the DJs, morning DJs for 99X, Cody Kopp.
Yep. Cody.
Like, if you haven't seen him out in the like the field doing his thing, like we're down here, whatever, looks nothing
Or
like
like
the way
Jesse K on 92.9.
Dude, they look nothing. I mean, it's like you got a great face for radio, you know, kind of. I mean, I'm not saying that, but
That's what I was told by several people. That's why I did podcasting.
But you never know what they look like, you know. And so, but it was crazy because he kind of got me into that fold of like, oh, this is neat. What does this button do? What does this switch do? And this was well before I ever even. I don't think I had played a guitar at that point.
Wow.
Like, I didn't get into music until probably junior year of high school, and I was like,
really?
You know, and it was like, oh, I'm gonna play some acoustic, and like I don't know what it was, like probably. I don't know, some like Kenny Wayne Shepherd or something. And I'm like, oh, these chicks like this. Yeah.
Yes,
watch
they
me play
do.
it, you know, and it was like light bulbs. But yeah, so it was kind of crazy. But the broadcast world has always sort of interested me. Like talking podcast.
And it's live. You can edit this to a certain degree. If I accidentally say something that's not okay anymore, it's just out there. And the thing is I can't, there's not, unless it becomes a replay, no one else is going to hear it, but you know who is going to hear it is AMP. They have some pretty strong community guidelines, people checking it. Like, I know a guy, one of the other creators is banned for life. They just sent him an email like, you're banned for life, because he was making a joke about, he was just, you know, doing like a comedy podcast bit almost. And he was saying like something about somebody having sex with a donkey. And he was like, and then he gets this email that goes, you're currently suspended for like the sexual content with an animal guideline, blah, blah, blah. I don't think he would have been banned if he just stayed off AMP, but he got really like indignant about it. And then he tried to like get on his girlfriend's account and run a show from her account. And that's what got him banned. But they keep that stuff and they can check it up on it whenever they want. Yeah. And they probably just have bots reading it, honestly, and flagging stuff. And then they have one person going through looking at the flags to see if they're warranted, you know, because sometimes have you ever used a caption generator for any social media videos and stuff where it thinks it hears one word, but it puts another one on there. So yeah, it could be it thought it heard, you know, God forbid, some horrible racial slur when it wasn't that. It was a different word. That person just happened to have an accent where it might have possibly sounded like.
It's a little crazy. Did you, when you first started doing the AMP thing, was it kind of a local following, or are you seeing it sort of come in from outside?
It's from all over the place.
Really?
Most of the people that listen to me are in the Los Angeles area, honestly.
Oh, cool.
It's really big down there because they had gotten a bunch of radio personalities to jump on there originally. Like there's DJ Hesta Prynn. Have you ever heard of Hesta Prynn?
Mm-mm.
She's a certified therapist. She's like a clinical therapist. So she does kind of therapy radio, almost like call in and let's talk about your issues kind of radio. And so she jumped on there. I forget this one guy who was on K-Rock. They got some K-Rock personalities to get on there too. And they're like awesome because the terrestrial radio is all but dead, man. Honestly. I mean, and look at this market. It's so hard. I know some people at the radio stations in Durango. it's really hard to sell to people when your market's so small that you literally don't have Nielsen ratings to pull from. We're like, our market's too small. We don't have enough people to actually be able to tell you like how many people are listening or when.
Yeah.
They can kind of get an idea just based on feedback, that surveys that they might have to do themselves, I imagine.
Sure. I mean, man, when I worked, so part of my internship after college was I elected to do, I was doing pre-production, basically filler reels, like listen to 99.7 The Point. Let's go. You know, like I would write the script, I would send it out to the guy, he would record it, the voice audio guy, and I'd come back and I'd throw the all the spinning shit and just build like a cool little 5-second deal. But I was shortly thereafter, the internship was done. I had just started up a business, and I opted to kind of put some advertising in there. It was so goddamn expensive to run ads, and I loved all the people. Like at that time, my previous bosses were still working there, and I had to go in and be like, I'm not saying that I couldn't spend more, but I am saying for sure that what I spent did not have any amount of ROI. And I was like, so there's no way that I can take this risk.
Yep.
And like this is a big spend, right? This is huge, but I've got so much access to the analytics.
Yep.
Like I know when
happening.
I do a dog shit episode, 100%. You know, and the people will let you know with the comments, but also the analytics will show you like, okay, this didn't ring true with people, and certain topics you can see like, oh shit, this hit off hard in Texas or Oklahoma, and like,
and you can see
like,
where there was like people went back and watched again, because it'll show you a spike in that specific part of the timeline, right? For YouTube specifically.
Yeah, and it does, and I'm like, again, such a nerd, so I always kind of check that out. But this AMP deal like kind of is intriguing to me because that's the thing that I find the hardest about YouTube is like getting subscribers. It's an actual mechanism that you have to achieve before you can monetize your channel, right? Mm-hmm. And then like you'll get, it's like when we first started this thing, it's like, okay, 1 or 2 subscribers, and I know them personally, right? And like thankfully they're like, hey, I like what you're doing. Whether they like the content or not, they're gonna like it or subscribe. Mm-hmm. But then you start to kind of see it build, and you do get this organic sort of traffic. Mm-hmm. So it's really cool to hear that when you started out with AMP, it was like, no, it wasn't really local. It was like, so I like whatever.
I did get a handful of people to get on there because if you don't have any listeners, it won't let you play any music. Oh, okay. You can play waiting music, or you can just scream into the void, and that's about it. It won't. You get 3 solo songs, and then if people aren't there, it won't let you play music anymore because they don't want people using it just to listen to free playlists of their own. Sure. Yeah.
But I mean, that's good though. It seems like whatever their algorithm base is, they're pushing it out to people that they think would like what you're doing. And it's weird. And the fact that you're monetized already, that's like,
I know, man. And the thing is it's a creator reward, and they gave us all this literature beforehand that's like, don't get used to like this. Don't rely on this. This shouldn't be why you're doing this. Yeah. This is just a reward for you. And I know the thing is, the weird dichotomy with that is they know that the reward is going to get people to stay longer. But recently, in the last couple of months, like when I started getting paid, all of a sudden there was this sea change, and some creators that were getting paid all of a sudden just aren't getting payouts anymore. I mean, there's a couple people that run shows every day, every morning for a few hours, and they were getting paid, probably a few $1,000s a month. And now they're not anymore. They also changed the guidelines around. They're like, some people were just running like sleep sounds at night for people. Yeah. And there's no engagement. So they're really going more on, are people engaging in the chat? Are people calling in? They're looking at a lot more things, not just like how many people did you have come to the show. Sure. And there's no real subscribers. And that's basically your follower is a subscriber. Mm-hmm. And when you follow someone, you can choose to leave the bell on to be notified and get a notification when they go live, or turn it off. So when you go live, it goes, we're telling your audience. So most people, if you really have to stick to the same time every week.
It's very terrestrial, very like serious radio based. Like this DJ is coming on, or this. Yeah,
people try to do pop-ups, but they don't do very well unless they have a huge following. There's a lady named Atusa, who's this blue-haired little devil. She's amazing. She runs this show every Tuesday night called Pervy Playlist, where she plays songs that are like sexy, but she mostly does call-in games like the Pervy Feud. Like you'll call in and she'll be like, all right, name as many euphemisms for a dick that you can in this amount of time. And then people are doing it in the chat too. And then but she was that shows where I kind of first really started to figure out, what is this community like? Yeah. How do we get it done? And then I've kind of become a cast member on that show too, where I do impromptu inappropriate poems because I don't know how I might have been doing improv when I was younger, but she'll be like, okay, topic is nipples. You have 2 songs to write a poem, and I'll write some hilarious poem about nipples. And I do it in this voice. I'm Professor Ham Candle. So it's also like I'm saying all these things and you're going, oh, this really reminds me of like old school shock jock style radio shit. But you have that chat. And anybody can call in, which you could do with radio. But I mean, do you ever try to call into a radio show back in the day?
Dude,
and you would either get a busy signal or they would be like, oh, you know what? This is the topic you want to talk about? Cool, we'll get you on. You wait and they go, we ran out of time. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry about that. I got on one time. I called, it was really weird. It was like when, did you ever listen to Sirius Radio at all? Or,
I did a little bit when Howard first moved over.
Gotcha.
I got like a free month of it.
Gotcha.
So, but I was like 19 or something.
Sure.
And so I was like, I don't know if I can pay for this. I could barely afford my phone right now.
It's so expensive.
Yeah.
Unless you like buy a new car, you get 3 months free.
That's right. They do.
So there was this show called Opie and Anthony. Huge show. And then that switched over to Opie and Jim Norton. And then the last iteration of that is, I think it's the Jim and Sam show. Mm-hmm. And so anyways, I called in one time because they were talking about what is the movie? Rad.
Okay.
Do you remember the BMX?
Yeah, the BMX movie.
So I call in, and because I have like a weird story. So it's like when I first watched that movie, like again, saw a trailer, but me being such a dumbass, like that was a VHS, and it was such a poor production movie, and it was also a poor production on the VHS.
Yeah.
Like it opened up with an ad for like something else, like not a completely different movie. Just it was a local. It seemed like it was like shot in a Kmart. And so I go to like take it home and I watch it and it's like a 5-minute ad. And I'm like, oh, this is not the movie I want to watch. You know what I mean? And so I call in to Jim and Sam because they're reviewing this movie. And I'm like, dude, I got this crazy story. And I tell it. And
you tell it to like the person who screens the calls.
No.
Oh, you told it on air.
Yeah, no. So Sam answers. He's like, hey man, thanks for calling in. You got a story about Rad? I'm like, yeah, dude. And I tell a story. And he's like, that's fucking dumb, dude. Bye. And
what?
I was like, oh man,
I loved hoping that would have like crushed me if they said that shit.
It's like Sam's way. Like he basically let me down, very publicly, but also like softly. Be like, that's a waste of airspace. Don't call again. Thanks. Bye. Thanks for listening. But
man,
yeah. But that's the only time I've ever gotten through. But yes, God. You were right. It's like a straight up. You run into a wall, or you get the guy that picks it up. Yeah. What do you want to? No. Not gonna call back later. Click.
Yep. God, I used to win tickets for shit all the time.
Yeah.
I was, remember caller number 10.
Oh yeah.
I would call into this radio station we had in San Jose and it was in San Francisco too. It was called 98.5 KOME. It was any Bay Area people that were around when I was younger are probably freaking out right now because it was the best fucking alternative radio station ever. And they would always be giving away tickets, and especially they would be giving away tickets to concerts. And then they'd always give away tickets for like a 2 weeks before the movie came out. Sneak preview. Now, I learned after I won the first one that it was super cool because if you're seeing a movie 2 weeks before it comes out, not just like the day or two before it comes out, every time you go see one of those, when you walk out of the theater, they got a whole bunch of people with clipboards who want feedback from you because they're going to make changes. You're the test group.
Oh, you're the test
group.
So
when I saw fucking Freddy versus Jason, when I won it off the radio, I saw a slightly different version than we've all seen. They cut out a bunch of shit afterwards. I was always like, I don't want to fill. You don't have to fill it out, but I was just and they give you a poster, and they used to give you these big tickets that had like a version of the poster on it. So you felt really special. And now they don't do shit like that anymore, man. You don't have those 2 weeks before. Nobody gives away radio.
Yeah.
Nobody on the radio gives away anything you really want anymore.
No, it's always garbage. I can't believe that. Who is it? Bob and Tom are still on.
Wow, Bob and Tom are still on.
Yeah, I don't know. I was in somebody's office here, like a dentist's office, and it was early, and they were on, and it was like the classic Bob and Tom, and they got the one gal, I forget her name, but yeah, it's like I've heard so many horror stories about that show from like other people talking about it on podcasts. Like you go in and they hate each other. They've done it so long together. Yeah, they're not friends. They sit at they come in from like different like spaces in the studio. They sit there, they go through their day. Hey guys, good morning, Bob and Tom. How we doing? And so like anybody that comes in on like if it's a comedian or something, like they've got basically like a ledger of their jokes. And so what they try and do is like wait for that cue, and they're like, oh yeah, how about that one time? Like, you did this, and that's like your cue to like go into your shtick. And I'm like, this is so fucking cringy.
And they have to do that in every fucking city. I remember David Cross did a really great bit about that on one of his albums. Remember comedy albums before we just had to watch it all on Netflix? I miss listening to comedy and wondering what the fuck they were doing with their hands. Like, I didn't know what Eddie Murphy Raw was on video until like 10 years after I first was listening to it on like a bootleg tape. But like just having to go from city to city and go through the same. And he always does this thing where it's like, and they always have some stupid names like, you're listening to 98.5 with the Gator and the Lunatic.
Yeah.
Like, it's time for the Friday morning fart song. Like, they have to deal with that. And then they're not allowed to it's not like a podcast where you get a little bit of room to A, talk about real shit, or B, improv a little bit of the conversation and make jokes work rather than having this cookie cutter formatted bullshit, especially with guys like Bob and Tom who've been doing it for so long. They're like, they don't even like each other. I imagine that they have absolutely no patience for anything that's not the routine that they're in for this show.
Oh, dude, yeah, and it's like you know that they're having to show up for the money. At this point, it has defined them. If their real names are Bob and Tom, congratulations, but chances are they're not. So it's like they've created this whole world, and they're just living it. They're living out the last couple of days as terrestrial radio is going to die.
So we had Howard. There was Bob and Tom, Opie and Anthony, Kevin and Bean was the thing they did in L.A.
Yeah,
remember Tom Likas? He was like the OG, like super misogynistic asshole just by himself. And he had he sounded like Alex Jones. Maybe his final form is Alex Jones. Maybe he turned into Alex Jones. But there were so many of these radio personalities and they just.
Don Imus. Remember
Don
him?
Imus.
He was like super controversial. Yes. Him and Howard were kind of doing a very, like, not a similar shtick, but it was so edgy that it was like, and I think Imus was on like it was an odd station. It wasn't.
Were they both on Clear Channel at the same time? Or was it Clear Channel they were on? I thought they were on the same. They were working for the same company essentially. So it was like a rivalry, but they couldn't get too shitty about each other because they were, technically part of the same corporate family.
Yeah, and that's weird too. And then you've got to deal with like the whole like syndication thing. So it's like I forget these guys' names they're either right on whatever channel is syndicated with them, but they're right on after I think Bob and Tom. And like Jim and Andy or whatever. And so it's when they have to read local ads, it's hilarious, dude. It's like you got this guy in like Omaha, Nebraska, who's never been to anywhere in our area, is like reading some stuff. And it's like you hear him like, go on down to Tinseltown. And like, they're talking to you like, what the it's
Omaha, Nebraska's only 365 24/7 Christmas store. You can get Christmas. Did you know we have one of those in Durango now? I was like, we finally made it. One of those year-round Christmas stores.
Oh, for real?
Yeah, you can get Christmas shit there any day of the week.
I think that they should keep up at least, I would say, for a minimum of a 6-month period, pre or post Halloween, it doesn't matter, but a Spirit Halloween store should always be around because it's not just Halloween. It's like we costume parties, all kinds of things. This weekend, tomorrow, Saturday, we're actually going to go to my daughter's birthday. We're going bowling, but we're going to dress up as animals.
You going down to Farmington or you going to Skyute?
Skyute, yeah.
It's just such a better setup. And they don't measure your drinks with a robot like they do at the one in Farmington. They have those things they click on that measure exactly a shot.
1 ounce pour.
Yeah.
God, dude. Oh, man. So that brings us to a new topic. So, you and I, we know each other because a lot of my band members worked with you at Steamworks.
Yeah.
And I never knew, and this was why I was like, oh, this is crazy. I had no idea of your career like outside of Steamworks.
After that, yeah. Well, it kind of started there. Okay. So it started that their marketing guy, Brian, one of the co-founders, he's the one of the two co-founders, Chris and Brian. He's the one that's got usually like a handlebar mustache, and he's like the marketing guy who's out shaking hands and kissing babies. He was like, hey, man, I don't know anything about social media, and I'd love your help. And this was when I was just managing on the floor. And I was like, yeah, dude, I used to I made MySpace band pages for people before I moved here because they were like, we don't know like graphics, like, can you figure this out for us? So I kind of helped with some posts for a little bit. And then he was like, we're going to make you the social media manager. So that's like, you can bartend a few days a week. And then instead of having 2 managing shifts, you'll do 16 hours a week just doing social media stuff for Steamworks and then Elmora when it opened. And then it kind of just rolled into, I went to, like I said, BCI, worked there for about a year and then went out on my own and kind of So Steamworks kind of created the career for me, which is
interesting.
crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. So so when did you leave Steamworks? Because I hadn't seen you and it's probably been a decade.
It's really like we see each other in person, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Because I mean, I was still working there. I would see you and Simone come in, and I'd be like, "What's up, Kyle? How are you doing, man?" I'd say 2017 is when I left to go to BCI, because what I had done was I was like, okay, they had this thing happen where they were like, they have a new person come in that was like the CFO guy, and they're like, okay, so
this is BCI has this?
No. This is at Steamworks.
Oh, okay.
This is at Steamworks. They had a new CFO person come in and kind of was like looking at. They had an old CFO that had been there forever, and then this new person's coming in and dialing shit in and making it better. And it was like, this isn't really something that you should. This is something you should be kind of paying for outside. So what they were like, they're like, hey, we're not firing you or anything, but what you kind of have to do now is, can you create your own like LLC, and then we'll pay you. And then you could still keep your bartending shifts and everything, but we'll pay you to do this work as an independent contractor. I was like, cool, yeah, no problem. I'll totally do that. And then I did that. And then all of a sudden I was like, well, now I've got this. I can start doing it for other people. Yeah. And I think the first other client I got after them was the Taste of Durango, Visit Durango. Mandy Davis, who was, I think she was still working at the Orr House at the time, was like, hey, I need somebody to help run. So I don't have the bandwidth for it. Can you run social media for that? So I had my own small kind of operation, boutique, like just me doing it. Did a couple things there. And then I got scouted by BCI Media, which is the digital agency that's attached to the Herald. They had a new guy that came from the Bay Area, same city I came from. So we had a lot of rapport there, like talking about restaurants we used to go to. And he was like, hey, man, I kind of want to bring you onto the team. And I get there and I find out on the first day of training that I'm not there to do anything cool and creative, like take photos and make videos like I love doing. I'm there to be an outside sales rep. So I have to sit there and learn their products specifically, which were all pretty at the time. I don't know how it is now. They're all pretty cookie cutter. Like, here's a package. You get a package. You get like one Facebook post and one Google Plus. Remember Google Plus? Google Plus post per week. And then you get this and you get this. And so I'm selling these packages for about a year. And I go, I thought it was a great opportunity, at least get some time in the digital marketing realm, learn more about other stuff I don't do, because I was pretty much just a social media guy. Social media is what I knew. Facebook and Instagram, honestly, at the time, that was it. And then I was like, you know what? I'm going to go out. I want to go out on my own. And I found a guy named Tyler Rice. I'm not sure if you know Tyler. I'm not sure if you guys were playing music locally together, but he was the banjo player for Liver Down the River for a lot of years. Okay, yeah. Before he stopped. But he is really good at web design and SEO, which is not my realm. I'm the creative guy. Like, I am good at video editing. I'm good at sound editing with videos. I'm good at photography. I'm good at graphic design, and I can write copy. I can write blogs. I could do all that stuff. So I was like, I had met him and I was like, hey man, what would you think about partnering together? And I'll handle all this stuff that you don't do, and you can handle all this stuff that I don't do, and we can just have our own thing. And then I left BCI and was like, hey, I'm done. I'm out. I got to do this myself. And it was funny because Ben at the time was like, I thought you were going to do it in the first like 3 months, because he had seen so many people like me who did what I did, the people that did the work and then became these sales reps and were like, I can do this better, and then left. So I stuck around though, because I enjoyed working for BCI Media. Yeah. They're great people over there. It was just still the program for digital marketing was so new over there that I wasn't sure that they were still feeling it out. But I was like, okay, I'm going to go. And it's been successful since. I've kind of dubbed myself the creative director because there's two of us and we didn't know how to title ourselves. So I was like, I'm the guy that does the creative shit. You're the technical director. I'm the creative director. And then we've kind of we're a two-man operation. We don't take every client. We kind of really fit, and we don't just cookie cutter or try to like nickel and dime people like, oh, well, all right, well, what's your budget? You only have $200 a month. Cool. We'll do this for you. We'll go like, here's the plan that you need to do for success. And we can do this plan, or we can not work together. Yeah. We're not going to pare things down just to get money from people, because it's not going to work. Sure. If someone goes, hey, I'm looking for somebody to just do organic social media for me, and we hope that our goal is to, get our sales up 10% or something. I'm like, you're not going to get that with just organic social media with the following that you have. The organic social media is a lot of just talking to the audience you already have. Mm-hmm. You're going to need ads. You're going to need a whole sales funnel kind of setup. You're going to need to be reaching people through advertising. You're going to need to be building an email list. I explain all this to people, and most of the time they just gloss over. Yeah.
It's a lot. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, I tried to, and I love them to death. Kay Deshay and Kelsey Parks. I worked with them for a while trying to just get a website up and get this thing going. And you know, we had a really good rapport. Like I love them, like genuinely as people. Like they're fun. I like them. I love having conversations and interactions with them. And they're just genuine people. But in a weird way, like I was like kind of trying to tax them with this thing of like, okay, I want you to market for my, build this out for my real estate business. And then also at the same time, like, let's build this out for the podcast. But it was really weird. Like we kind of came to a head and it was like, we had gone through all of these deliverables. Right. And they did their job. And it was like, it was strange. Like we got to the very end and I in my head, I was like, you know, the podcast is this version of Kyle. The podcast is what I want to be regardless of who sees it. This is me. The real estate world is also me, but it's a different thing. Like I'm handling sometimes $1 million transactions and like, you know, I can't show up with a backwards hat. It's not that I can't, but it's just like, you know, some people need to know that I am intelligent enough to like handle this type of deal. And I'm really good at contracts and things like that. And so they're two separate worlds. And I was trying to meld them together. And I'm telling Kate and Kelsey to like, hey, you guys do this. And we got all the way through these deliverables. It's like, what do you think? And I'm looking at it, I'm going like, nah, this is not it. And then, so I started really thinking about that. I was like, you know what? I didn't give them the information enough to succeed in a weird way. And it was like, you know, but I had to call them and be like, it's not going to work. And it really was like it's not you, it's me conversation. I was like, I think I need to let this podcast in a weird way grow and possibly fail at certain things in a very organic, natural way. And I was like, and I'm not ready to brand it. I don't know what I want it to be. I don't know what it needs to look like to the public. Yep. And so, you know, we kind of parted ways. But in a weird way, it's like I'm having to fail inevitably at some of these things, like social media marketing and
success rehearsal, man.
I guess, yeah. But it's hard. But you don't think about it. A lot of people think that, you know, you can take on all of it at once. Like I can do my social media marketing and I can do this, and you absolutely can. You know, but you're not going to
have a life.
Yeah, there's a time and a place to where if you have a defined path that you want to go down, it's like it's okay to reach out and be like, hey, I want these people. But what long and short of that conversation is like, just because you like somebody or you love somebody or you enjoy having drinks and the conversations are great, it may not always jive at the end of it, right? And it's like, I'm not jaded at that situation. Like I'm so glad that they were kind of there for me at that time frame in my life. And we worked on that for like 6 months. It cost me a lot of money. But at the end of the day, it's like they did what their job was to do. And I was paying them for that. It just didn't work out. So
it happens so often.
Yeah. And it's like, and so people, it's like you kind of like, if it doesn't work out with this agency, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's not going to work out with the next one. And it's like, and sometimes you grow out of an agency. Like if you're working with a group or if you're working with a production engineer or whatever the deal, it's like, I mean, you know, sometimes the show just does this, or you take this route, or it's like, all right, hey, we're going to just go ahead and like give hugs.
Yep.
And, you know,
and for certain stuff, like for certain business categories or creative projects, there's a lot to be said for what you need to do with regards to like expectation management and just being truthful with people, because you'll get people that are just salespeople, right? That I'd like to thank BCI Media for honestly teaching me some amazing sales techniques. And Ben Sorensen kind of took me under his wing and taught me some great sales techniques. I don't like doing sales, but like there's something to be said for, there's the type of salespeople that just like oversell and just try to get you to sign, right? And I learned in this business, like if you're real honest with people, like if I'm like, hey, they're like, hey, I want to launch this thing. It's going to be all online based. I want to basically create passive income for myself. That's the keyword they always use. Takes a shitload of investment monetarily in the beginning and time wise. And then I always am telling them like, this is a long haul. This is a trial and error. We can read all the blogs we want. We can talk to all the experts we want. I know that I have clients that do this all the time. I know you just read a marketing book and went to the seminar and you think that that's the fucking gospel of all marketing. But even they'll tell you, you need to try a bunch of shit out to see what works, where your audience is. You can't just do 3 or 4 Instagram posts and go, Instagram isn't where my audience is because I didn't see as much as I saw when I was on Facebook or something. You need to keep trying. You need to keep investing time and money into these things to really see it work. So the biggest thing is to just manage expectations and be like, if you really want to do this, there's no guarantee. We're going to look at analytics. We will improve, but there's no guarantee you're going to see like a hockey stick, kind of like what they call hockey stick growth when you're looking at metrics.
Sure.
Like anytime soon, especially when you're trying to build like this. Like you're gonna, if you built this super fast, chances are, if you all of a sudden had 1,000 subscribers because you used some marketing techniques, chances are some of those were kind of done in a black hat way, or some of those people will be kind of fly by night, show up and then leave. When you're slowly building an audience, those people will be loyal.
Yeah.
And it takes longer, but it's way worth it.
Oh, I mean, the outcome of the loyal audience is, I heard somebody say this the other day. It was like forget this lady, but either way, she was like an Instagram model or an Instagram or whatever. And so like she grew her account. It was like in 2 months. And she hit like 1 million subscribers, or not 1 million, whatever, likes or whatever it is on Instagram, followers. And so then she does this huge campaign and like builds all of this merch, like shirts and sandals and like dumps, I don't know how many thousands of dollars into that. And literally doesn't sell a single item, like nothing.
Not a
and she's like,
single
I don't know
item.
what happened. It's like, well, you didn't build a fan base. You built an audience. An audience is fine. An audience is okay. And you can be monetized to a certain level from an audience. But there's certain things that you can't do unless you have a fan base.
And
like
a huge audience that has a smaller fan base within inside that audience.
Yeah.
Like, and start with one shirt. Like, start with one shirt that's like an inside joke from the thing. Start with that, and then hit people. Don't build out a whole merch station with all this shit. Jeez. Oh man.
I got one shirt that I am producing because I was talking to Colin's dumbass on one of the episodes, and we were drinking heavily. But either way, I still firmly think I've heard somebody, and I think Colin told me this, but I really truly in that episode thought it was 6 degrees of bacon. Like, so, and he's like, no, dude, he's like, first off, it's 6 degrees of separation from Kevin Bacon, but he's like, I think that it's actually like 3 degrees of separation from Kevin Bacon. And I'm like, nah, dude, I'm just going to, I made the shirts, dude. And he's like, what? And it was like, we were remote. So he could like, it was like catching everything. It's like, I'm just going to scratch out the 6 and put a 7.
God, 6 degrees. So in 6 degrees of separation is how it all started, as like a sociological theory that everybody's connected to everybody on earth within 6 people. Right. And so then the Kevin Bacon thing comes along. And then after that, I used to play a game with my brother and a bunch of friends that used to do a podcast. We would do it on air, and it was just called the 6 Degrees game. And you'd pick 2 actors, and you'd sit there and you'd have to, like, whoever could get it the fastest. And it's super fun, but it takes fucking forever. And you fuck with people and be like Marilyn Monroe to, like Brie Larson, like, good luck, fucker. Yeah. So we'd start like doing research beforehand to just be like, all right, what was the most recent movie by a bunch of these classic actors where they were in with somebody who, like, I don't know, Helen Mirren or Ian McKellen, find us an obscure movie when they were not even well known yet. But that 6 Degrees game, everybody, that 6 Degrees game is super fun if you're a movie nerd. Yeah. You don't need Kevin Bacon. Just do it with everybody.
Yeah.
I can imagine you and Colin.
The merch thing, dude.
What's the shirt idea?
So I don't know. I mean, realistically, I told him on that episode, I was like, I made shirts that said 6 degrees of bacon. And then so the joke was with him, because it was like breaking in and out, like with his reception or whatever.
Because you did that one remote.
Yeah, it was a remote one. So he's talking, and I can see him, but I'm talking over him on purpose because I know it's. And I'm like, I'll just and I'm drunk as hell on whiskey and White Claw, and so I'm like, I'm just gonna have him scratch out the 6 and put a 7. So I am gonna eventually make that shirt like 7 degrees of bacon with the 6 scratched out.
That's
but
awesome.
But
dude, I'll buy one.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just have to rock it on here enough to where people's like, he's wearing the same shirt like all the time. Like, yeah.
Do you have any merch? Do you have like a We Built a Podcast shirts that you can? I mean, because you can go through those services where essentially there's no risk for you. You put the design up there. You'll make a royalty of $1 or $2 off each one, but most of the money goes to, like, say, I don't know, sure. Oh, what's the big one that does like Redbubble? Yeah, that use a lot of graphic artists do like nostalgic remixes of. It's like Ronald McDonald, but he's got like face tattoos and he's like throwing up the Wu-Tang W or something.
No, I don't, man. I thought about it. I was like the merch design nerd for the band for the longest time, and
you have some cool merch too.
I enjoy that. Like, it's just.
Did you design that album cover for Al Chiringa?
Yeah,
that was a dope ass album cover, man.
I may or may not have been on hallucinogens operating.
I imagine
Photoshop.
so. Basically,
I looked at that the other day. It like randomly like popped up. Like, I've just been like. All of my playlist, if I have reception, so I don't download everything to the phone, but I'll just hit shuffle. And like, it's such a weird deal in the morning. Like I'll just let it shuffle for 2 hours. And like, sometimes some shit will come on there. The other day, like one of the songs on Outringa came on. I was like, oh man, this takes me way back. But then like, you know, some random shit will pop up. Like the other day was, God, what popped up? And it was just like, man, it just like got me in the groove of like, and so I've just been doing this like this constant like upload of like this morning shuffle's kicking ass. Boom, here it is. And like just trying to like uplift people if they get something. But I mean, no, I don't. I mean, to get back, I don't have any merch. It's just it's one of those things. It's like eventually, yeah, I could see it happening. But I kind of want it almost to be like crowd driven. Yeah, it's like if this thing gets
people are clamoring for it, and so you bend to their will rather than try to force it down.
Like if
throat.
somebody made a joke of like if the Kevin Bacon thing, the dumbass fucking drunken comment I made, became something, then yeah. Or if something else like develops and you know grows a little bit of steam, if somebody comments it and it's like a recurring theme or something, then I would do that. But it would be strictly like fan driven or audience driven of like, oh yeah. And if it was like 2 of them sold, then cool. You know, I wouldn't be attached to it. I damn sure wouldn't go spend $50,000 on merch, but no, like the merch thing, like I've always been kind of weird about merch, and it's just like totally driven from like bands. Like when we started, like people were already not really purchasing CDs, you know what I mean? And so it was like the merch thing was like at that time, it like when somebody bought a shirt from you, it felt so much more contextual than if they bought your album. You want them to listen to the music, but if you buy a shirt from somebody, they're going to wear it. They're going to rock a Fleetwood Mac. Yep. You know what I mean? They're going to promote you in a way that the music doesn't necessarily promote you. Granted, you're selling the music. That's why you want, but they love you or they like you and they're proud enough of what you did or enjoyed it enough to wear something that represents that. Yep. And so like merch for me, before merch was really the only way that artists started making money or do make money now.
Touring and merch, that's it.
Was the way that we made any money. Like, I mean, I remember being on tour in California, eating fucking ramen and tuna out of a shared bowl in the back of the trailer with the guys, like being like, this is dinner tonight. And like, we had to sell 3 or 4 shirts to get down to wherever we were going at. Like we, you know, there'd be days where we'd be stuck in LA and like the greater LA area for 2 weeks. And it's like to get gas to the band, like, you know, we got to sell 2 or 3 shirts.
You guys fucking hustled, man. You guys did the deal. Like when people go, oh, you know, I was in a band, they're like, well, the experience you had is like you had a band. You did the touring thing and not like you had a label put you on a tour and get you at like even Motel 6s or something low key. You guys were all in that van. And so when I heard some of those stories from Jeff and I was just like, man, you guys just read a book. But then so many bands have those stories. It's like,
yeah, I mean, the thing of it is like we would find ourselves, especially like in California, like that whole West Coast circuit. Like if you get up to Seattle, you play with a band, and then you might be on the same show with them like 3 or 4 weeks later down in LA or something. And it was weird and close knit. But the thing, like I was talking to a friend the other day who also does music, maybe not like to the level that we did it, but he runs a podcast as well.
Oh, nice.
And you know, he was like, it's so different. Like with music. And I can't speak to every industry, but like our industry, that progressive rock industry, and I think because a lot of it was like fueled at that time by like adolescence. A lot of band members were really young, ours and other tour. Like we get,
you guys were still in your early 20s, right?
Yeah, but I mean, we were touring. Like we played a couple shows with this band called Aiden. Like 2 of their guitarists were still in high school, and they were on Warped Tour. They're touring the country.
Wow.
And so, but there was a lot of like animosity between bands.
Of course.
Like, and it like, you know, if you'd play the show and you were headlining and then the next night, like, well, why the fuck are they headlining it? You know, because we were headlining last night. You know, it's all the booking agents. All
similar
whatever.
with comics too, man. Yeah. It's that live, there's the camaraderie, but then there's always like that level of pettiness that just lives under the surface that you can't get away from because like, I mean, you're just saying you fucking are sharing out of a bowl. You're like, I'm paying my fucking dues. And these fucking high school kids that use their dad's money to get on the Warped Tour somehow, or, you know, you can't help it. Yeah. It's just human nature.
Yeah. But what I found like with podcasting and it like my little podcasting circle is so tiny. Yeah. And we're friends, but it's like, you know, even people that, you know, I'll like, or I'll share, you know, one of the reels from his show. And like, I don't know these folks. Like there's some guys that live in New York or wherever they're doing this interview at. And they'll reach out and like I'll see them like kind of follow some of my stuff and then I'll post it. And then it's like there's a bit more camaraderie when it comes to like podcasts because it's like like I'm not talking to the same audience that he's talking to. Nowhere near it. Right. We have our own little vein, our own little communities, but it's like we're kind of constantly like sort of propping each other up as best we can. You know what I mean? It's not like a Rogan, like somebody comes on this platform. You're not getting 1 million followers tomorrow. Sorry, Sean.
No,
it's just not happening.
That's not how I did it. I did it because I just like talking to people.
Yeah. So,
I just like having, I just love the podcast format. Kevin Smith's what got me into podcast back in like 2007 when he started doing it.
Me of Kevin Smith, dude.
It's because I kind of look like I started growing the beard out a little longer because there was one point where like I have the Silent Bob hat and I was wearing it and my beard was shorter and someone was just looking at me. They're like,
dude,
do you love him so much that you're fucking becoming him, dude? And I'm like, maybe. I don't know. But it started when I was a kid, man. I watched Mallrats was the first one I saw. And I just love the way Brody talked, the way his prose for his dialogue, the way he writes dialogue, which isn't necessarily realistic. People don't talk like that, but just that super quick. Tarantino's the same way and much better at it. But that he kind of helped develop how I talk, and especially when I'm like drinking and hanging out with friends. Yeah. You know, like I want to hold court. Anytime I'm holding court and making people laugh and saying shit, that's all because of Kevin Smith. He kind of instilled that in me.
He's so many of his movies are, and this is when I start to really realize my age, and because all of my friend group, you know, and that can fluctuate from, you know, like 10 years pre-post my age bracket, but it's like if I know a person, I know that I'm probably going to enjoy a conversation or like somebody if they get a couple of like one-off jokes. If it's like from a Will Ferrell flick and they can like respond back with something like in kind, or like, if I can say this to you and you look at me and you go like, give me the quirk, but it's like, if I say, what the fuck is the internet? Yeah. And you know that, then I'm like, all right, we're
the internet is a communications tool used worldwide where people can share pornography with one another and bitch about movies. Yeah.
So it's like, man, but you know, Kevin Smith obviously has his own, like, that's his own world. Like, you know, Will Ferrell's created an empire. But it's like, there's so many, like, the one-liners and like, it's where my humor is based, you know? And it's constantly, like, I'm not funny at all. Like, I'm not.
You're funny, man. I've listened. You've made some good jokes on this show. Come on, man. But it's
stolen from some movie that I listen. It's always like paraphrased and like loosely tied back to something. And I'm like, oh, that reminded me of this. But it's funny. Like, I don't know if,
it's heroin addiction because, and Kevin Smith's recently come out and said that he's super codependent and he's dealing with it and he's like kind of moving away from podcasting so much. Yeah. He did a whole video, check it out on YouTube, about some trauma he had when he was really little that he never dealt with and all this stuff. But it comes from once that feeling you get when you make somebody laugh is a bigger dopamine dump than most things. I compare it probably only to like adrenaline from skydiving. And so it's like cool, but at the same time, you get so addicted to it, you become this like habitual. I'm guilty of this habitual people pleaser. I need to be making people laugh, even if it's not the appropriate time to be making people laugh. You know, so don't be jealous of like people that are funny. Yeah, because it's not all it's cracked up to be, man.
Yeah, no, I mean it's, you know, I see it, and the weird thing about the dopamine hit, like going back real quick to the band thing, is that forever, you know, I was never shy. I could get on the microphone and get in front of 1,000 people, and we played some pretty large shows. But the music with me and writing lyrics, like it was always my little world to sort of escape whatever realities I didn't want to face. And I, you know, if you listen to like old stuff that we did, it was always some like metaphor that was like twisting and winding, instead of like now the music that we're writing, like it does have like, there's metaphors about things, but like when I say something, it's more direct. It's like, this is what I'm trying to say, and I'm okay and I'm comfortable with being in my own shell, that I can say it like this so that hopefully you understand exactly what I'm saying. You don't have to wonder what it is. It's not hidden in some bullshit fucking metaphor that, you know, Outstring of the Dreaming. Like that's all.
There's a lot of metaphor. There's a lot to unpack.
It's about a dream, right? It's about a nightmare, like start to finish. But there's so much stuff, like problems with my mom, problems with my dad, problems in life, problems with whatever.
So were you the main writer of the lyrics? Because I know you guys probably collabed on music, but did you write almost all the lyrics?
Yeah. So okay. So back at that time frame, that was 2000. We wrote that album from like 2009 to 2010-ish. At that juncture, we were, oddly enough, like we were a band, but we were all still so jealous of each other within the band's walls. And the guys will tell you this, like right now, like we've gotten so far past this, we've matured. And that's why I say like the youth aspect, right? The adolescent aspect of being in a band, you're jealous of each other. Yeah. Unless you're not, and you just have this weird,
Even though you guys grew up together.
Yeah.
Like, you guys
it's
are
like,
super
but,
close.
but, you know, like Jeff would write a piece and then Colin would write a piece, and they were always like conflicting of like, well, I'm the guitarist, you know? And it's like, so I had my lyrics, like that was my realm. Don't touch my fucking realm. This is where I live. I breathe. I do this part. This is my job in the band. So yeah, on that album, absolutely everything pre that album, I wrote all the lyrics, I did all the harmonies, and you know, and it was really like my thing. But now writing the new music, we've completely flipped it around because we sort of landed at this thought, which is the song is more important than our fucking egos.
Yep.
All right. None of us think at all that we're ever going to get famous or we're ever going to get views from our music. We're writing music again because we love it, which is why we started writing music in the very first place. It's just 20 years later, right?
And now you have families now, and it's like you have life experience to pull from.
Yeah.
And I like that. So are you, what was really funny is you've got a pretty deep voice, man, like in real life. But when you sing, you have I think it was I'd only heard you sing. I'd only heard it before I met you. And then you're like, what's up, man? And I'm like, how the fuck did that voice come out? Is the new stuff, is it similar vocal or because it was more,
no.
You were going for more progressive and like emo metal rock at the time.
Yeah. It still dabbles in some of the high, but you know, the guy, it's funny. So I went to Texas for a while, and down there I was like so depressed. I was playing nothing but country music, and I was really working on my lower register, and sort of it altered the way I sing. And so I do still hit some high notes, but one thing with our previous albums is it was all up here. It was all here. There was no dynamic range. I wanted to just sing as high.
Huge at the time, though. That was the kind of like, and you guys were trying to make something that was marketable.
Sure.
And you did. I mean, that fucking album is better than a lot of albums that, you know, became huge.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
It is. It's just that it doesn't just mean, just because you're talented, just because you put together everything together doesn't always mean you're going to, there's a whole perfect storm of shit that has to happen to become successful. So
oh God, yeah.
If you had had that perfect storm, if the lottery balls had fallen correctly, I'm sure you would have. We wouldn't be here right now. You'd be strung out on heroin somewhere.
Somewhere in fucking LA. Yeah, so I sing a lot lower, but the good thing about, and this is the first time ever this has happened, but we've got about 17 songs written. I think we've got 7 or 8 recorded fully. And, you know, every single piece in there, we sacrificed. Jeff had a piece and Colin would say, hey man, I think we should add this here because like it comes back around. And, you know, when we first got back together, it was like, you could see the ego. And then we just had that talk with each other. Like, look, we want to write good songs, right? That's all we want to write. We're not getting fucking famous. Yeah. Nobody's going to know us.
Watch you get fucking famous after this. Cause it's always when you go, I don't want to fucking be famous. And then they're like, hey, would you like to be famous?
Yeah, no, it's not going to happen. But it's, you know, we realized like, hey man, we're adults. We need to make sacrifices in life. We need to make sacrifices in songs. And all of a sudden the songs started coming together as a group, and they're so much fucking better. And then
I dig what I've heard on social media
really
so
tripped
far.
me out was like I had a bunch of like lyrical ideas or maybe like a hook and I had some stuff, but we started actually doing nothing but vocal and lyrical sessions. Like the guys, Colin drives in from Denver, Jeff drives in from Grand Junction. We meet up at Courtney's house for a whole weekend. We've never done that. And like literally I'll have an idea and then they'll be like, I think you should do this.
Oh, okay. So you guys are getting together to do that.
We're all making sacrifices, and it's producing, in my opinion, way, way better material. And it's stuff that's in my opinion, far more palatable to people. You know?
I didn't know you guys were getting together because I know you all went to recording school.
Yeah.
So I thought maybe you were just like, all right, Courtney, start with the drums, and then and you're just doing tracks and emailing them to each other and building it.
We do that. Like we do, obviously that's how the ideas kind of started. It's like a little hook or a riff or something. And we share files it takes about a year to write a song this way, but we try and meet up twice a year if we can, like depending on everybody's schedules. And they're brutal sessions. Like they're not fun actually. It's fun to see the guys. I love them, right?
But you have a short amount of time.
Dude,
to get
it's
a whole
2 days,
lot done.
and we're in the studio from 9 to fucking 2 in the morning, and then we wake up the next morning, have coffee, and because we've got such a tiny window, but we've really written some very enjoyable songs in my opinion, and awesome. It feels different, and I think everybody in the band knows that it feels different and it feels right. So it's really cool to kind of see it.
I'm excited. I can't wait till I can buy the album when it comes out.
I don't know. We're going to do an album.
Or just or just the songs. If I can purchase them somewhere.
They're on iTunes. They're on Spotify.
They're on iTunes
they're
already?
everywhere. Yeah.
How did I not know that?
So our new band's name, which again, we're horrible with names, but it's Minutes and Hours, right? But Hours is OU.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, no, history
you
of
get it.
history of you didn't is a great name for a band. It's just in a world driven by search traffic and
dude.
being unique in that respect. It's you're never going to find the history. I could type in history of band and it's just going to show me like the history of Led Zeppelin first or like Aerosmith.
Dude, it was so
Dude,
bad.
I am so sorry, but I have to get going.
No. All right.
So
Sean,
how are we going to wrap it up?
we can wrapping it up right now, brother.
Okay,
Thank
sweet.
you so much for coming on. We should do this again. This
Dude,
was fun.
I'll do this. I'll do when I don't have to edit it, when I don't have to do the shit behind the scenes, I'll come as much as you want, man.
Heck yeah, man. I appreciate it. Thank you, brother.
Of course, dude.
You guys, Shamo.
Have you ever felt
Are you listening? Damn. Yeah.